wants to sell some sand. That's essentially what we have here. And I don't think anybody has the right to deny anyone any such thing as that. There is a process, obviously. With a company as serious as Vulcan, that process is pretty well fleshed out. Now, Vulcan has an impeccable record of safety. They're a very serious safety record here. So when people talk of barge accidents and tugboat accidents, that has no bearing here. That is tantamount to saying if a plane crashes, we should stop flying. Or if one airline company has a poor record of safety, that the one that has a great record of safety should be pointed at. It has no bearing at all if there are accidents with barges and tugboats on this project. What we're looking at is a process which, by the way, nowhere, this process has been conducted in many places for decades. And in none, in my research, I have not seen any instance of reports of high instances of cancer at all, in any instance. So what I see when people start talking about cancer is I see obfuscation, I see trickery, I see deception, I see outright lies.
15 seconds remaining.
Thank you. And so, at a minimum, what we're looking at here is wrong-headedness, wrong-mindedness. 15 or 14 jobs and $100,000 each year into county coffers. So a project that, in conclusion, a project that hurts no one, realistically, and helps in many ways. Highways being built, that is a job-creating, tax revenue-producing project. So I say, of course, we vote yes for that. Thank you.
Before you go, you didn't tell us where you lived, not where you're from, or, you know.
Okay, well, I'm Rob Arnold. I am here as an American. So I don't live in this county. I am somebody...
We need, for the record...
Sure.
Where you are
sure, no problem. It's Arlington, Virginia. I'm in Pentagon City.
That's all we need.
Okay, sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Next is Bill Sforza. Sorry if I butchered it. Next is David Smith, then Kevin Donald.
Would you just for the record correct us, please?
It's, well, do you want the American pronunciation or the Italian?
Capisci italiano?
Sforza.
Grazie.
Prego. All right. Basically, I had this whole thing worked up, and a bunch of people said what I was going to say, and then a bunch of people said a lot of silly things that kind of made me change my mind about what I was going to say. My name is Bill Sforza. I live in Rappahannock Academy, Caroline County. Just a few miles, basically, down the road from Black Marsh Lane. I've actually been to the Black Marsh farm quite a few times. You never guess which side debate I'm on. Basically, I'm an electrical engineer. I've worked in engineering for quite a few years now. And when I see a project like this, when I approach a project of this nature, my mind can't help but looking at things from an engineering standpoint. You know, kind of an objective, will this work? What are the intentions in mind? And how is everybody going to be affected? You know, the people who are involved on the inside, the people who are involved in the area, the people who are involved in the community. And I got to meet Jackie at one of the parties she held, you know, in support of this. And at first she asked me to speak, and I was like, oh, all right, I guess I'll help you out, you know, thinking big corporation, trying to, you know, kind of take advantage of a small community. I'm like, well, all right, I guess I can say a few words for you. And then she showed me the fact sheet, you know, all the information on the operation. And of course, you know, first thing I'm thinking, mining operation. These guys are going to have more tractor-trailer trucks on the road. These guys are going to be kicking up dust like crazy. They're going to be making tons of noise, irritating all the neighbors. There's no way this thing is going to fly. This is a small community. These guys are all farmers. No way. But then I looked at the fact sheet. You know, details of the operations. And it actually brought a smile to my face to see the things that they thought of, the things that they were prepared for, the things that they, in my opinion, at first glance, had seen before, issues they had seen before. There were no trucks on the road. There's a river right next to it. I was like, holy cow, how did I not see that? There's a river right there that they can send all the materials up and down the river to wherever they need to go. Waterways have been used for transportation for years, for thousands of years. I mean, tribes in Mexico used waterways, and this is not new. Waterways were built for transportation. I mean, there are canals, made out of ancient cement just to transport things by water and to transport water itself. The dust problem, wet mining. Wet dust doesn't float. Okay, that's a pretty easy solution. Things get a little muddy, but, everybody in the area is
15 seconds
happy.
remaining.
Noise pollution. There's actually not that much machinery involved in these kind of mining operations. Tax benefits to schools. My ex has some children that were in the Caroline County schools, and we had to supply basically 5 children worth of supplies for the whole year at the beginning of the year. So increased tax income would help the schools quite a bit. Basically, what bothered me the most about what everybody was saying opposed to the project was the fear involved, the fear of change, the fear of new things, the fear of the river changing, the fear of the economy changing, the fear of property values changing. And, fears are very valid. Fears are very tough to overcome, but things change. Economy changes,
Time is up.
people change, and change is necessary. So I hope you guys will see that this change is beneficial. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, David Smith, Kevin Donald, and Zachary Sampson.
Dave Smith's not here right now.
Excuse me?
I'm Kevin Donald. Dave Smith's not here.
Okay, Dave Smith's not here. Mr. Donald, go right ahead.
My name is Kevin Donald, and I've been a resident of Caroline County for 6 years, and I have worked for Vulcan Materials for 10 years. I was born and raised in this area, and I have a lot of fond memories of boating and fishing on the Rappahannock River. The river is very important to me, and if I thought by putting a plant on Black Marsh Farm would harm the river in any way, I would not support this project. This entire project has nothing but good benefits to offer the river and the land, increasing productivity for the agriculture of this property and $100,000 in revenue for this county, not to mention 14 jobs for area residents. Over the last few weeks, me and my wife have talked to a lot of residents of Caroline County about this project, and one thing that everyone agreed on was that they wanted to see Caroline County grow. And I think that Vulcan Materials, with this attention to personal safety, environmental safety, and social responsibility, would be a great start. So I ask you, for the good of the county, to vote yes for Black Marsh Farm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Zachary Sampson replacing Rob Arnold, followed by T.Y. Welsh and Emmett Sneed.
Zachary Sampson. Next.
Next is T.Y. Welsh, followed by Emmett Sneed, followed by Chris Hornet.
Okay, T.Y. Welsh. Mr. Sneed, keep making your way down. And what was the last name? Horner? I take it that's Mr. Horner? I think well, it really doesn't matter at this point, but I think Mr. Sneed was next.
No, Mr. Welsh.
You're Mr. Welsh?
Then Mr. Sneed.
I'll be short.
You're Mr. Welsh?
Yes.
Okay. Then it is your turn, sir.
Tom Welsh, 2115.
Hey. Okay. One last time. No addresses.
Oh.
All we want to know is if you live in the county. If you do, then just tell us your voting district. This is actually, we record the meetings. They're actually broadcast on the local
Okay.
cable channel. I wanted to do something, I know where you live if you tell me your address.
Gotcha.
So just, you know, just don't tell us your address.
Choke down 6 iron, Lee Hill District, just across the line.
Yeah, shanked 6 iron. Understand what that's all about. Okay, go right ahead, sir.
Commerce. And we'll make it short.
Go right
This
ahead.
country needs commerce. Caroline County needs commerce. And you've got a great couple right here in Vulcan. And I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Choke down 6 iron is like 180 yards, so you're close. Okay, Mr. Sneed.
Mr. Sneed. Emmett C. Sneed III, Port Royal District, Caroline County. I feel like if I gave my address, it'd be okay because I got Caroline's finest here.
But they won't be when we play it on TV later, that's all.
Yeah.
Everybody knows where you are.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Maybe I'll buy something.
That's why everybody knows where you are.
Thanks. I support the Black Marsh project because it is good for Caroline County economically, good for the state of Virginia, while at the same time it's good for the Rappahannock River and the Chesapeake Bay. The owner of Black Marsh, who has farmed the property for 28 years, has made an effort to make sure that no wetlands will be impacted and filter strips and green setbacks that Black Marsh will install far exceed any requirement required by the federal government to protect the Rappahannock River and the Chesapeake Bay. All commercial construction sites are required to have a small sediment pond on site to collect rainwater. Black Marsh will have 50% of its potential tillable farmland, acting as a giant sediment pond for the whole area of Skinker's Neck. This lake will improve the overall water quality of the river by reducing the amount of nutrients running into the river. The owner of Black Marsh, Albert Wachmeister, just recently put 287 acres in permanent green space, which proves his commitment as a good steward of the environment. This is a separate piece of property with over a mile of river frontage. The Black Marsh project will bring jobs to Caroline County, and it will bring money to the county without costing the county anything. And at the end of the day, it will be a farm with a lake. You, the Board of Supervisors, should ignore the selfish agenda of the very loud but small group of people and support what is best for all the people of Caroline County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sneed.
Next is Chris Hornung, followed by Danny Carter and Mike Newman.
Mr. Carter's gone.
Hi,
All
good
right.
evening. My name is Chris Hornung. I'm Vice President of Planning and Engineering for the Silver Companies, and I live in the city of Fredericksburg.
Thank you.
I cannot speak to your comprehensive plan. I'm not a citizen of your county. I'm not going to pretend to know it. I can't speak to river safety or barge safety. Haven't been around them. What I can speak to is the being in the local construction industry. I can tell you, and I can ask you to please do not underestimate the importance of the raw materials that you have in Caroline County for our entire region and this part of the country. Over the last 10 years, the price of construction materials has increased dramatically. We've seen 50 to 75% increases in materials. And the sand and gravel that comes out of Caroline County is used for concrete, it's used in your roads, it's used in all of your building materials that you use in the county for public buildings, for your infrastructure projects. It's extremely vital that those materials are available and they can be obtained for reasonable prices. One of the reasons why the prices have gone up so much, part of it's fuel costs, but others are the cost of raw materials. And it's very vital. It's one of the reasons why I think Vulcan's looking at this area and using barges to help reduce the cost, not just to get those supplies to our immediate area, but also outside of the area and reduce the cost in users. And so the availability of the sand and the responsible extraction of it is extremely important. One of the things, I did look at the plan. I have studied what they're doing. I do think that it's a very creative plan to preserve the river. I am on the state of Virginia's Technical Advisory Committee for Stormwater Management. And I was a little, I couldn't really understand why those who were opposing the project for environmental reasons didn't focus on the pollution removal that is proposed as part of this project, like Mr. Sneed just talked about. If you look at what the current land use is as a farm, it's being maintained responsibly by the owner, by the farmer. That gentleman may not own the property forever. If it stays in agricultural use, other farmers can farm that land. If you look at the analysis that was done that looks at the pollution that is currently coming off of the property, they use the state minimum or the state guideline as what they think is currently coming off of the property. That doesn't mean that in the future irresponsible farming practices couldn't be used in that property and could have a dramatic increase in pollution. If you look at what could come off of that, there are hundreds of pounds of phosphorus and nitrogen that can come off. And when you're looking at it from an environmental standpoint of concerns over one barge a day coming down the river, affecting crab pots and fishermen versus hundreds of pounds of nitrogen and phosphorus, it's a big impact. And I'm curious as to why that really hasn't been brought up at all from an environmental standpoint by any of the experts talking about the environmental impacts on the river. Huge impact in reducing that load from this property. So
15 seconds remaining.
I'm supportive. I can't speak to land use. That's up to you and what you want to do and your comp plan, but I don't want you to underestimate the importance of the materials that are coming off of the properties in Caroline County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thought I didn't see Danny Carter, but I don't have my glasses on.
Danny Carter is not here. Next would be Mike Newman, followed by Darrell Blake Jr.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Michael Newman. I'm a resident of the Port Royal voting district. I was an environmental health specialist for 31 years, 18 in the Rappahannock district, 14 in the Three Rivers Health District. Just a rhetorical question. What is a special exception? I mean, an exception is an exception. I really don't see anything special about this. It's just an exception, and you get enough of those, and then you really don't have much of a plan. It's like a constitution or anything else. Enough exceptions, and it really doesn't exist anymore. My mother used to tell me, you know, Mike, you can put lipstick on a pig, dress it up, and call it anything you like, but it's still a pig. I've heard this lake, this pond, referred to as a pond, as a lake, as a, you know, whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a barrow pit. That's what it is. It's a barrow pit full of water. In my career, I went into many of them that were dry. You put a soil auger down in them, and all you've got is heavy clay. The good stuff is gone. And it's out of here. And that's what concerns me about anywhere. This is not a renewable resource. I mean, this is the land. When it's gone, it's gone. You've taxed it, you're going to tax it once, and then it's gone. So that's all I have to say. I'm not going to address environmental anything anymore. I've been out of it for several years. I wasn't even going to speak about barges, but I can tell you, I don't live on the river, but I can see it. And since I've lived there the last 12 years, I've seen 2 barges jammed up on bars. One of them was there for so long, I thought that King George County was building a city on the other side because of the lights at night, trying to get that thing off of there. So, I mean, accidents do happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
After Mr. Blake, we'll have Andrew Ball and Joe Parker.
Mrs. Carter, you have another list? We already have that? Okay, thank you. Oh, that's what you're on now? Oh, you haven't gotten to that one yet. Okay. I'm sorry, sir. Go right ahead.
That's okay. Good evening. I'm Darrell Blake Jr. I reside in Middlesex County. I've been a professional archaeologist in Virginia for 18 years, and I'm a member of the Council of Virginia Archaeologists. As I stated at the last meeting, the area of potential effect proposed for the quarry at Black Marsh Farm is in the middle of a landscape rich in prehistoric and historic Native American villages, colonial plantations, Civil War sites, historic farmsteads, churches, schools, and cemeteries. I feel compelled to reiterate that the Phase 1A survey conducted at the Black Marsh Farm is not an adequate effort for such an archaeologically sensitive area. A Phase 1A involves only background and archival research, walkover survey of selected areas, and a very limited subsurface testing. The consultant's own report says that they could not rule out the possibility that significant sites are in that project area. While discussing the Black Marsh Farm quarry with the Virginia State archaeologist, his response to the efficiency of Phase 1 surveys was this, and I quote, "I have become a great critic of Phase 1A. How can you find anything if you don't look?" End quote. At a minimum, a more thorough archaeological survey should be conducted before anything is allowed to impact this area. Laws and regulations aside, an area with such a rich cultural heritage should be preserved. We must not compound the tragic history of the Rappahannock tribe and surrounding tribes by completely disregarding the villages and burial grounds of their ancestors, just as we should not desecrate the sites and graves of the slaves, freedmen, farmers, and soldiers who built this community, this state, and this nation. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir. Middlesex County.
Next is Andrew Ball, followed by Joe Parker and Patricia Parker.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Andrew Ball. I'm Vice President of the Northern Neck Land Conservancy, a group dedicated to conserving rural areas in the Northern Neck of Virginia. But I'd like to speak this evening as a property owner. I reside in King George County on the northern bank of the Rappahannock River in a piece of property that was once owned by Samuel Skinker, whose neck this gravel mine will despoil if it goes ahead. What can I add to the many reasons that you've heard this evening for declining this request? Where I live is about 1 mile downstream of one of the 3 gravel pits in King George County that you've heard about this evening, namely the Kenston gravel pit. Kenston gravel pit takes its gravel out in 2 ways. Some on Route 3, and we all know about that, but they are also barging some of their gravel out on the Rappahannock. So I can speak from personal experience what those barges are like. About 1 barge comes by every 7 to 10 days. I like to take my grandchildren on the river. I need to check to see which day the barge is going to come for safety reasons. It's correct that these barges have no bow wave, but it's incorrect to say that they have no wake. They leave in behind them a huge, I'd call it a groundswell, except it's a river swell that lasts for about 20 minutes after the barge has gone by. The river banks are washed by this ground swell, and the prospect of 1 barge per day it would be coming up and another one would be coming down, so basically 2 barges per day fills me with great dismay. We've heard that the barges travel at night. Well, the ones from Kenston occasionally travel at night with bright spotlights that shine in through my bedroom window and wake me up. The noise of the diesels, although they're barely audible because the thrum is of such a low pitch that it's hardly hearing. It's more that it sort of shakes the air and shakes the ground. So these barges that are currently passing my house, luckily only once every 10 days, do present a significant threat to both how I want to use the river. I won't get into the safety. Even before you get into considering any accidents, one doesn't want to be on the river when one of these barges is about to pass. So I thank you for your consideration and the opportunity to present this opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Ball.
Next is Joe Parker, if he's here.
Mr. Parker's in the corner.
Okay. Followed by Patricia Parker and John Biddle Sr.
Good evening. My name is Joe Parker. I do live in the Port Royal voting district, and I'm about 2.5 miles from the proposed site. I also operate my professional photography business from that same location. I have a very small prepared speech, but I have a lot of disjointed notes here that I was taking while people were speaking, things I thought that were important to kind of rebuttal, I guess, or at least talk about briefly. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Albert and Vulcan Materials for the amazing job they did to get the crowd here tonight, because the supporters were certainly not present at the Planning Commission meeting. If you were here, you would know that, and if you weren't, there were about 35 to 40 people speaking against it, and 2 spoke in favor. So they have really done their homework since. They were either underprepared for that, or they saved the big guns for tonight. At any rate, they also mentioned that they had 800 people in favor of this, but the population of Caroline County is about 26,000. I think we should do a better poll if you want to go by numbers. One other mention was made about silicosis. Is that the right word? I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. And I don't know anything about it, but I do know that they say it's an occupational disease. Even Vulcan says that. Well, what about the 14 people that are going to work there? Even though the gentleman said, oh, because of the way they do it, they don't need to be even wearing, by law, they don't have to wear the respirators, thank you. My advice would be to wear the respirator if you're here and you're going to work for Vulcan. It just makes sense. The other thing was about the decibels. Somebody had some fancy chart about the noise levels and they weren't going to be that bad or whatever. Well, I do live fairly close to, it's about the same distance to the Mid-Atlantic plant that's already on 17. When the wind blows a certain direction, I can certainly hear it playing. I can hear the backup machines. It's not all the time, no, it isn't. But I do hear it on certain days when the wind blows a certain direction. It can blow another direction, and I hear one of the mines that's in King George. I can hear that one as well. Same kind of thing. It's still a low, dull noise that is quite annoying if you're used to loving nature and enjoying quiet. Now, there's just a couple more things. Oh, somebody mentioned about, the barges come through at night. Well, I happen to know a number of people that go midnight catfishing. If any of you know people that go catfishing, a lot of times they do it at night. They're going by the moon or tides or whatever, but they're out there. I wish them a lot of luck if they're out there. And one other thing, no wake. My response to that would be no way. I have been at Wilmont Landing, which is in King George County, when a barge has come through there. Now that's, if you've been there, you know that there's a very sharp turn right before you get to the Wilmont Pier. So the barge was not going fast. It was going very slow. I had a canoe there. I pulled my canoe up very far. A friend of mine didn't pull up his canoe at all,
seconds remaining.
And the first wave turned it over. The second wave sank it. Anyway, my speech is this. When you are an astronaut and you go into space, or if you fly on an airplane, the first thing you notice is that there are no colors dividing the states, the counties, or the country. You quickly learn that we are all just neighbors. If you fly over Black Marsh Farm, you'll see that some of the closest neighbors are King George residents. Zoning laws were done to protect everyone, not just one. Who will benefit? Who will see the material? Not anybody in this county. Listen to our Planning Commission. They were here for a reason. They did their job. Although in Haymount, I even forgot to mention, Haymount hasn't been developed, but this will certainly not help. The last thing I'm going to say is that when you enter Caroline County, the first words you read on a sign in several places in this county are "Keep Caroline Beautiful." I urge you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Next is Patricia Parker, John Biddle Sr., and Terry Medley.
Hi, good evening. I'm Trish Parker, Joe's wife, and I'm also a resident of Port Royal District. And my question I think we should consider tonight is, who benefits from all this? Who has our best interest at heart? Vulcan or the Caroline County Planning Commission? I think we know Vulcan is in the business of making money. The Caroline County Planning Commission is in the business of protecting our interests. The Caroline County Planning Commission rejected this proposal. We should listen to them. They are here for us. Something that can hurt so many and only benefits a few should not be passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker.
Chairman, Supervisors, my name is John Biddle. I'm from Chesapeake, Virginia. Many of you have seen or talked to me around Caroline County. I came here to support Albert and Jackie Gray, my sister, for the Black Marsh Farm sand gravel permit. My job was to inform county residents about the Black Marsh Farm project. 14 full-time jobs, $100,000 in tax revenue, no demand on county services, no truck traffic. I was able to get over 400 signed letters of support from Caroline County residents. They expressed to me the importance of jobs and the lack of them in Caroline County. I have traveled from Port Royal to Dawn, Ladysmith to Sparta. I've been to Frog Level, No Man's Corner, Doggett's Fort, Bowling Green, Ruther Glen, and every road in between. I've crossed Polecat Creek, Reedy Creek, Herring Creek, Doctors Creek, and the Mattaponi River. The only people who didn't like the Black Marsh project were truckers who didn't like the no truck part of the project. They wanted work. They wanted jobs. I've known Albert since 2008. In that time, I've gotten to know the history of Black Marsh Farm. It was a vegetable farm, then a tree and shrub farm. I look around the barn and see tractors, hydraulic tree spades, bush hogs, mowers, and assorted tools and materials. His labor and dedication through the years, good times and bad, is reflected in that barn. Years of devotion has taken a toll on Albert. Now Albert wants to shift gears and farm sand and gravel. Be a good neighbor and vote yes. God bless Caroline County, God bless the state of Virginia, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Terry Medley, Luanne Reed, Quentin Lawyer.
Okay, Luanne Medley. Okay, you already spoke. Thank you, ma'am. That's okay. We probably had it twice, but you only get one time, and you did a fine job. So thank you, sir. You're asking to speak last, and I don't know your name. Okay, we give the applicant the last. So you want to be next to last? It's your turn. There's no Terry Medley. We're only going to make these calls once. We're not even going for 3. No Terry Medley. Okay. Mr. Royer, you're it, because you're next to last. Because I think everybody in the audience has spoken. Except you. You're last. You can't do that.
I can't do that?
No. But you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. I'm Quentin Lawyer with Glacier Development. I live in Prince William County. I'm not a resident of Caroline County.
That's fine.
I am a partner in the Four Winds Development and own over 2,000 lots within the development. It's adjacent to the application. A lot of things have been said tonight, and I had this beautiful speech I was going to do tonight, but to be honest with you, the applicant and myself have the means and the will to pack this auditorium with experts on either side to argue either side of this debate. But the applicant brought up a very good point in the very beginning, was property rights. You know, it really pains me to have to come up here and speak because I'm a true believer of property rights. The applicant has put a lot of effort into his presentation and into the development of his plans. But there's one simple error in his plans is no consideration was given to buffering our existing development. Basically, the applicant has proposed a 25-foot buffer between our 2,000 lots and their mining operation. We are requesting the board to extend that buffer to at least 500 to 1,000 feet in order for us to continue our development. Everything else, we can work with the applicant in the language of the SUP. and with operations and everything else. But in order for us to keep the value of our property in the existence and our development plans, we would request that at least that much buffer be given, and we'll be more than willing to work with staff and the applicant on other language. That there's some minor stuff in the language in the conditions, proposed conditions, that I think we can work with the applicant with. But that's our biggest concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Wachmeister, your turn.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good night. My name is Albert Wachtmeister. For the last 29 years, I have owned and lived on Black Marsh Farm, the farm that's causing all this fuss tonight. During the 29 years I have lived in Caroline County, I have stood in front of you 3 times, all 3 times to get approval for something that would make the farm more efficient and better. Irrigation crossing public road, migrant worker camp, extending the time I could occupy the camp. You thought about my request and approved them all. I thank you for that. I have tried my best to make the farm the best it could be as a farm, from grain to vegetables to trees. The tree nursery venture made the bank very happy and my wallet very sad. It is an extremely difficult piece of land to make a living out of because of all the sand and gravel. I have to make my living from my farm because I do not have a second income source. The farm is all I have. I have done my homework regarding the sand and gravel companies already in the area, and I did not like what I saw at those facilities. I was introduced to Vulcan Material Company and saw many of their facilities, both active and reclaimed. I was very impressed with Vulcan and the way they conducted business and reclamation. Vulcan is the best. Vulcan and Black Marsh will do what we say we will do by keeping the land and facility nice and neat. We will make you proud. In closing, I ask you kindly to approve this project. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Mr. Wachmeister. You can have a seat. We will, I have to do one more procedural thing just to make sure, but is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, we declare the public hearing closed. You weren't getting up that time. Okay. We did say we were going to adjourn at 12. We have actually completed the public hearing. In all seriousness, it's quite late, but I think the board would like to thank all the people who came out, whether you spoke for or against. I think this is what makes America such a great country, because you can come out and say what you want to say, and I sure hope when it's all over you'll shake hands with all the others. I'll just give you a little bit of insight from my perspective. Mr. Clark is back there. When Mr. Clark made his presentation 20 years ago, the room was packed, and most of the people that spoke for or against spoke against Mr. Clark then, so we know we're all neighbors. We're all, whoever said that about you weren't necessarily in the county if you lived on that side of Port Royal, that's not true. We're all family. We're all in this together. So the board is going to deliberate between now and at our next meeting. We will come back on August 9th, and we will deliberate and discuss this some more. We may make a decision then, we may not make a decision then, but we will deliberate some more. I do want to thank everyone who's come out, and trust me, at least for me, we will give all of your comments quite a bit of consideration. So, Mr. Payne, I expect you to come back on the 9th, probably with the representatives of Vulcan, and I think you had your controller. Okay, so we'll ask you plenty of questions, and I think that's probably it for the night. We said we were going to do pretty close. It's 12:30. We finished the public hearing. I am very much in need of a motion to adjourn. Okay, motion made by Mr. Popowitz. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. I was a little too excited. All right, we finished this public hearing. Mr. Parton, you're going to take agenda item 9, the full-time utilities water position, for our next meeting. We're not going to go into closed meeting. We are going to receive some information from Mr. Parton regarding the closed meeting, which the closed meeting was about the county administrator position. So I'm going back to my motion to adjourn, which was made by Mr. Popowitz, seconded by Mr. Seeley. No discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you again.